So you want to be a game master. Don't loan out your books. Now, I've mentioned this a couple times in other videos, and recently one of my subscribers asked me the question as to why and where, and if I could point them out to where those entries were as to why I wouldn't loan my books out. This comes from decades of experience, the hard way. But there's more to it than that. This is for wannabe game masters. If you truly want to be the master of the game you're playing, and I don't care what system it is, there are plenty of systems out there that only require a book. You get the source book and you're good. You don't need any of the other books. You don't. Most of my book systems out here on the tables are set up that way, on my shelf are set up that way, that there's only so much that you have to address when it comes to numbers of material. D&D tends to be an exception to the rule, wherein at the minimum, a dungeon master who wants to play in Dungeons & Dragons, unless you can get basic or the BX, if you can get basic or expert, which I highly recommend if you're just starting out, really honestly, that is the best system from a Dungeons & Dragons perspective. That does not work for most other systems. The other systems, you throw yourself into it at the beginning with the book you have, and you go from there and you learn what you have. There's a lot of disadvantages to Dungeons and Dragons as something to be learned as a new GM, in the part because it's so convoluted. Somebody pointed out not that long ago, if you look on YouTube, for example, there is a whole lot of websites out there who focus specifically on Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeons and Dragons related content, but don't nearly touch on any of the other genres out there. Battletech, Warhammer, close seconds in that aspect. But you name your favorite game system. Okay, Pathfinder. Maybe I don't see them, but I don't see any YouTube videos for Pathfinder to the scale that D&D puts out. Why is that? Where's the Call of Cthulhu websites? Why aren't there scores and scores of game masters out there trying to help people to understand and to better scare the crap out of their table, or to get into the psyche of the mind, which is a big part of Call of Cthulhu? And I'm just using that as examples. So why I don't loan out books? And as a game master, I strongly believe if you really want to be a game master, it's on you to purchase the core book you need to learn from. You should not be borrowing somebody else's book, because that becomes a problem. One, that's denying that book resource to the person you're borrowing it from. Even if that person isn't using it at the moment, that's not the point. The point is, you don't keep borrowing your neighbor's hammer, you go buy your own damn hammer. That's the way to do things. The second problem with loaning your books out is they don't always come back. The people that borrow them lose them, they get damaged, or perhaps they just decide they're not coming back to the table and playing again. They've decided they don't want to play, or life circumstances gets in your way. Then you have a bad blood situation potentially developing, because my $50 book is in Joe's hands over there, and Joe don't want to give it back. That's a problem. That's a problem. If I had not loaned that book out in the first place, we would not have this problem, period. The only problem we would have is Joe decided not to play anymore. Good for Joe. But Joe went home with some of my books. I need those books back. And I don't want to go through all the BS to get them back. You should not have to do that either. You should not have to ask or beg or steal your crap back from somebody. If you have people that you know, maybe it's your son or your daughter, maybe it's a friend or an associate at work who really wants to get into being the facilitator of whatever game system that they want to play, letting them view your stuff to give them an idea of whether or not they really want to buy that or invest in it is one thing. It's a different thing to let them take it home, because then it becomes abusive. If this person is running the show for your campaign for 6 months, your books may not be in your possession for 6 months. And what does 9/10 of the law mean? Just saying, what is 9/10? What was the whole point of 9/10 of the law, right? We teach that to our kids young as a bad thing, you know. Well, he didn't want it no more. I kept it. He didn't ask for it back. Oh, I forgot. The list just keeps going and going and going. And I'm not. And some people are truthfully being honest, and some are being deceptive. Some are just being a-holes. That's part of life too. I really believe if you truly, really want to run the show, you should be the one investing in the equipment because it shows. If you want to be a mechanic, buy your tools. Don't borrow grandpa's. If grandpa gives you his tools, then they're now your tools, not grandpa's no more. Respect that. But don't expect to be always tapping the other guy's stuff. I guarantee you go to your favorite mechanic shop, and what do you find? Each mechanic has their own set of tools. There might be tools for the unit, for the building, there might be community use stuff, but generally speaking, most mechanic, I guarantee it, when I take my boss's diesel truck to the mechanic and I go in their big shop, what do I see? These huge roll-on toolboxes, and every one of them is owned by the individual mechanic. And they don't share their tools very much for good reasons. That's a lot of money that they invest in, and they're the tools of their trade. You want to be the game master, the book is your tool of this trade that you are wanting to master. Own it, buy it, invest in it, prove to yourself and everybody else around you you're serious about this and not just a passing fancy. Because I've seen plenty of passing fancies. I've seen plenty of people who thought it would be really easy to do, and then when they sit down and they go home for 2 or 3 months or a couple of weeks or even one session and realize just how much effort and time a good game master puts into things over the time over the various sessions of the campaign, they don't want to do it. Too much work, too much hassle. Not everybody can be a game master. And it's not because, I just don't know how to do it. Even the Kennys of the world can be game masters. They just may not be very good at it. But then they might surprise you too. But at the end of the day, they need to invest in the books to do this. If you want to be game master, are serious about being this game master, you must invest in this, in my opinion. It's just being realistic. It also it cuts down on bad blood and bad feelings and misunderstandings. That all happens. Humans are human beings, and we do stupid, ignorant stuff, and we do forget, and we do get cocky, and we do get arrogant, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. Just saying. There's good reasons, and you should think real hard about loaning your stuff out once you buy it. And if you're serious about being that game master, go buy the damn core book or books that you need to have so they're yours. The one caveat, one exception I make in this is for the player handbook. And the only reason I make this when I talk about Dungeons and Dragons specifically, because I prefer running in the 3 to 3.5 edition, and there'll be a lot of argument out there about, well, this is different. No, I'm sorry, but 3.5 is still 3. It's just got a half a point added to it. It's still the same system. Y'all can argue it all you want about the date. Well, this was put out before 3.5. Perhaps, but this is still 3.5 material because you can use this in a 3-point game system. 3.5 game system. So I happen to have a spare player handbook, in part because I loaned out my original to somebody else who sat on it for 2 years. 2 years coming and going from the gaming table with that book, which forced me to buy a second copy so I had one for reference material as the game master might require. I was adamant that I was not loaning that second book out to a second player. That wasn't going. I'm not in the business to buy the material for everybody sitting at my table. It's just not a practical thing to do. It sometimes it can almost sound a little bit selfish, but there is a point in this hobby that you have to be selfish. You have to protect your investment. This stuff's not cheap. You know this. It's not it's not free. There is some free stuff out there. If you can get it free, then get all the copies out you want. And Bob's your uncle. Now, on a lot of this older stuff, you can probably find free PDFs on the internet, and then you can say, well, here's a free PDF of this particular core book. Then they have a copy, whether what they do with it after that point, that's moot. That doesn't matter, does it? Anyway, Greenway Mama and me are highly suggesting, that you really invest in the core books you need to have if you're going to be the game master of your table. Right, Mama? Right? Yeah, right. Till next time, I'm me. This is Mama.